King Alfred the Great, one of the greatest kings from the kingdom of Wessex. In this class, we are going to look at his contribution. Why is he remembered as the Great? Now, these are some of the pictures available. This is a painting, whereas these two are statues. I mean, they stand even today, statues at Winchester. So these statues, they show the different aspects of this great man. So here you have him as a warrior in the warrior avatar with weapons, right? Here you have him with some kind of a scroll. So as a man of letters, a man of learning, as well as this acts as in hard work, working hard. All right. So he was a man of many talents, a multifaceted personality, and he brought this multifacetedness into his rule as well. Okay. So let's begin with the reign and the time of King Alfred the Great of Wessex. We had seen in the previous class how the heptarchy gave way to the Viking invasion. After that, you had the Viking invasion, that is invasion of the Danes. So King Alfred, he realized that the Danes, these people, they had penetrated deep into the heartland of Wessex, and it was not easy to defeat them. So the Danes, they had captured this place, Wareham in Dorset in 876 AD. And then again, they were able to defeat Alfred in this battle called the Battle of Chippenham in 878 AD. And what did Alfred do after being defeated? He took refuge in this abbey in Athelney, and he plotted a comeback. So he was helped by all these soldiers who were unhappy with the Danes and all those who had grievances against the Danes. So he had this band of very loyal and sturdy army. So they stayed at Athelney for some time and they plotted a comeback. They wanted to defeat the Danes. So after their preparation, there was this battle, the Battle of Ethandune in 878, which is a landmark wherein the Danes were defeated and their king Guthrum, he was made to sign the Treaty of Wedmore. So the land in which the Danes came and settled, that area came to be known as the Danelaw. So according to the Treaty of Wedmore, they were given this stretch of land called the Danelaw, wherein they would live, and the conditions were that they would not attack and plunder the rest of the Anglo-Saxon kingdom, whatever was remaining, and then they would become Christians. So they had to settle down as peaceful homemakers, householders, and become Christians as per the Treaty of Wedmore. So the Treaty of Wedmore defined what the Danes could do in Britain. So in a way, the threat from the Danes was reduced because they were given a huge stretch of land. So you can see Alfred's kingdom and Danelaw in these maps. So the pink one here you saw. So this entire land. Now this is a redrawn map of Britain. So now this map is totally different from the heptarchy that we are familiar with. Now this much of area has become Danelaw. Northumbria still stands, and this is Wessex. So Wessex has become bigger. So Wessex under King Alfred. Here, this region, the thing in light green, was all inhabited by the Celts, the Celtic people. You remember in Wales, Ireland, then you have Scotland in the northern region. So this is the new map. The new map, the kingdom of you could say Britain, the kingdoms of Britain. So this much area is known as the Danelaw. One thing we need to remember here was when these Danes they settled into this area, they were given some kind of taxes, some kind of money, and this money would come from the people, and it was called a Danegeld, Danegeld, some kind of a tax. So a tax to kind of pay off the Danes and kind of to keep them away from attacking the rest of Britain. Now, what are some of the contributions of King Alfred? He was an able and a generous diplomat, and he helped to make the land peaceful. So he secured peace to the land, and there was this second battle with the Danes, which helped him win the city of London. And London became the center, you could call it the capital of the whole of Saxondom. This is a Saxon kingdom, right? Wessex. So the whole of Saxondom was centered around the city of London. So since that time, we find that London had become a very, very important focal point. And London, it became a walled and garrison town protected by burghers. Burghers, as in these sentry, these people who would stand in guard of the city. So it became a fortressed city. King Alfred, he is credited with creating the first ever navy. He created a navy to protect the coastline of England. So never before had any of the kings or the rulers thought about this. We know England has this huge shoreline. All the invading groups, obviously, they came through water, but none of them had thought about protecting the coastline with a strong navy. Nobody had bothered, nobody had thought about it before King Alfred. So he was the first one. So he secured the coastline of England by creating a very strong navy. So he also commissioned a permanent army in the land. So there was this permanent army. So all of them did not have to stand guard or take care of the land. So what did he envision? This particular army, it was quite disciplined, and there was something like a rotation. That is, one third of them would be on guard duty, that is guarding the land, and the other two-third, they would do cultivation, they would do exercise, everything, and they would be producing crops and food for the rest of the army members. So by turn, so there was this kind of a rotation. So every time, if at all there was any battle or a threat of war, they would be prepared. So they had enough exercise. They were not sitting and idling away and getting fat, and they were providing things for themselves. So they were becoming self sufficient. So this was a wonderful idea that was implemented by King Alfred. So he made the navy strong. He also commissioned a permanent army. Earlier, armies used to be temporary. Whenever there was a threat, the nobles would provide some soldiers and some army to the king. And once the war was over, they would be disbanded. So, whenever there was this threat, you wouldn't find many people really ready for the battle. That is, with proper training and exercise. So, all these shortcomings were solved by the commissioning of a permanent army by King Alfred. And then he divided the whole country into smaller units, which was called a shire. So administration was by a federal mode. Federal mode is freedom is given to these areas. We follow the federal mode in India also, because every state is free to govern and take care of the interest of that particular state in consultation with the central government. That is the federal mode of governance. So here, administration was by federal mode, wherein these little shires, that is the smallest unit in a district or a county, was administered by an officer. So they had a lot of freedom to run their own area. And again, Alfred, he was the first English man of letters, one of the first greatest of rulers who was very well learned and very well read. He was a scholar. He founded this monastery at Athelney to revive and restore the older tradition of educational monasteries. I hope you remember the Benedictine revival and things like that when we spoke about Christianity in Britain. So he also founded monasteries, and Athelney, there was this monastery where he had hidden, if you remember, right, when he was biding his time to attack the Danes. He is also credited with finding the first kind of public schools for the sons of noblemen. So benefits of education was extended to the higher laity, laity as in common people. So the people belonging to the court, their sons. So anyone who was in the higher rung of society, they got the benefit of education, and these public schools were established for their benefit. And another contribution that was made by King Alfred was this codifying the confusing Anglo-Saxon laws. There were all kinds of laws. Many of them were confusing. What did he do? He put it down into a definite shape, made it much simpler. So it was a model of justice tempered with mercy. That was the kind of laws that were put down by King Alfred the Great. And then he was a protector of the Christian faith who who brought this aspect of Christianity, that mercy and temperance, those kind of things in whatever he did, whether it was the governing of the state, looking after the army, the military, or whether it was education, or the codifying of laws. He brought this Christian temperance into whatever he did, and he passed away in 900 AD after putting England back on the road of culture. So there was peace, some kind of a stability in England after all these invasions and numerous fights that had happened between the different countries. So today you can find this in Somerset. There is this monument. This is called King Alfred's Monument. This was erected to commemorate Alfred's occupation in 878, where you remember the Battle of Ethandune, wherein he had defeated the Danes. So, in memory of that, this has been erected. So this came much later. It was not built during the time of Alfred. Okay, so this stands at the place where the Abbey of Athelney once stood. So this was a place where he had taken refuge and bided his time before hitting back at the Danes. So this place is located at Somerset. So you find this signpost, King Alfred's Monument, and the signpost would lead you to this kind of a stone monument in memory of Alfred's occupation. Now, looking at King Alfred's family. This is the Wessex royal family tree. Don't worry about all these names. We need to remember Ethelred, right? Ethelred was in power when the Danes or the Vikings attacked, right? After that, we saw that he managed to defeat them. He managed to defeat them, but then he died after that. So after that, after King Ethelred, the next king was his brother Alfred. Now, after Alfred, Alfred was succeeded by his son Edward. We'll be doing Edward's time in detail in the next class. All right. Now, Edward was followed by his son Aethelstan. Now, Aethelstan, he had many sons, but none of them lived long. So they all died quite young. So therefore, after Aethelstan, his youngest brother Edgar the Peaceful was made the king, because Aethelstan's own sons did not live long. So his youngest brother Edgar was made the king, and he was also a very holy, saintly kind of a person who brought in the same kind of temperaments to his reign. That's why we remember him. We call him as Edgar the Peaceful. Under his time, though he was a very capable king, uh, a tragedy befell him, as in his son Edward was murdered by his stepmother, that is Edgar's wife. I mean, she had another son by another marriage. So what happened? She wanted her son to be the king. So she got Edgar's son Edward murdered, so that her son Ethelred could sit on the throne. So after Edgar the Peaceful, instead of his own blood son, his stepson Ethelred was made the king. That is after Edgar's death. So Ethelred, he became the king. So there, after Ethelred became the king, you can say that there was a break in the line of the Wessex kings, because he did not carry the father's bloodline, right? He was a stepson. So he's known as Ethelred the Unready. At the 30 or so years that he uh, ruled the country was one of the terriblest, horriblest of times. And he was not really ready to be a king, or he was not at all fit to be a king. That's why we call him, we remember him as Ethelred the Unready. So we'll be looking into all these kings after the death of King Alfred in the coming classes.